Hello guys, in the today's video we will learn about the system and functional testing. Then what is the functional testing and system integration testing, SIT environment, what we do in this environment and what is this system integration testing, black box testing, and its type of functional testing, which are the types like functionality testing, usability testing, security testing, performance testing. And the functionality have two types like functional and non-functional testing. We today we learn about the functional testing and all the coverages comes in the functional testing in this video. So let's start with the system and functional testing. And the another name for the system and functional testing is called as the system integration testing or black box testing. We can say that in the system and functional testing, tester check overall functionality of application from starting to end, step by step. Each and every functionality checking done in that functional testing. uh, in the functional testing means we check the functionality of the applications, all the functionality from start to end. And it is the process of checking correctness, completeness of functionality as per the requirement. In the functionality functional testing, we check that the system or the functionality is working or not according to the customer requirement. So that is that checking done in the functional testing. Like that functional testing includes like four types, that functionality testing, usability testing, security testing and performance testing. So we discuss about the functionality testing. So functionality testing has two types like functional and non-functional. In functionality testing, we check the internal functionality depends on the external functionality of the application or software. And it has two types, one is a functional and another is a non-functional testing. In functional testing, we check the internal functionality of the applications, all the internal functionality we check in the functional testing. And in non-functional testing, we check the external functionality of applications, like our application support different browser or not. We perform the compatibility testing, so and we perform the configuration testing, like our application supports the desktop or hardware devices or not. We perform in the non-functional like inter-system testing also there. It means our application supports the hardware or not, or application share data with another application or not. It comes in the inter-system testing. Then the globalization testing is there in the non-functional testing. Globalization means it support the different languages or not. Then the garbage testing is comes in the non-functional testing. Garbage means extra feature which is added in that functionality that is not not mentioned in the customer requirement. That is nothing but the garbage testing. Or parallel testing we also do in the non-functional testing. So these are the testing we learn in the non-functional testing. So today we learn about the functional testing and which are the coverages included in the functional testings. So let's start with the functional testing first. Yeah, the functionality testing has two types, one is the functional and another is a non-functional. So I already told that functional testing means we check the internal functionality of applications, so according to the customer requirement that functionality is working or not, we check. And the functional testing includes like behavioral coverages, input domain coverage, error handling coverage, backend coverage and calculation based coverage. In behavioral coverage, we check the behavior and property of the field or objects or functionality. In the behavioral coverage, we checks. And like in the behavioral coverage, we check the property and behavior of object or functionality. For example, we take the username field. Facebook user login page username field. Then the property of the text box is like accept user input, and the behavior is focus non-focus. We check in the behavioral coverage. And we take another example of mic button, our Google Meet mic button. Like property of mic button is on off is the property, and behavior is when we move our cursor or mouse on that mic button, it will change the color to blue to white. So that is the behavior of that mic button. So we check the property and behavior in behavioral coverage. That is nothing but behavioral. Then second one is the input domain coverage. Input domain coverage means in that we check the size and type of input. So which type of input, which type of data type we use, or size of the field we check in the input domain coverage. Size means if the mobile number field, then the size of the mobile number is 10. So our default mobile number size is 10. So if we put size less than 10, it is not acceptable in the mobile number field. And data type means which data type you are using, like integer, characters. These are the data types. In input domain coverage, we have to maintain the boundary value analysis and equivalence class participation also. Boundary value analysis means BVA. This is the technique of testing techniques, right? The test case techniques. And equivalence class participation is it is also one techniques to write the test cases. BVA means we check the boundary of the field, like a maximum boundary, minimum boundary we check of the text field. And equivalence class participation means we check the data type, which data type we are used in this field. Like so, for example, BVA means size of object, and ECP means data type which data type we are using. So, for example, one text box field should accept 4 to 8 characters. This is the data type, character. So there is a one text box field and it accept only 4 to 8 characters. So the boundary value analysis size is like 4 is the minimum size and max is the 8 size. So in between it only accept, or below 4 it is not acceptable, or above 4 it is not acceptable in the BVA size. Like minimum 4 it accept, minimum max 8 it will be accepted. So max minus 1 equal to 7, it is also accepted, plus max plus 1 it is not acceptable, and minimum minus 1 it is not acceptable, minimum plus 1 it is acceptable. So this is nothing but the boundary value analysis. And equivalence class participation means we use here the data type characters. So ECP valid or ECP invalid. Valid means it is acceptable. If you put A B C D E F G H, any characters you put here in the field, it is acceptable. But if you put the numbers or any symbols or special characters, it is not acceptable. So that's the meaning. It is ECP invalid or ECP valid. ECP valid means equivalence class participation valid, or ECP invalid means equivalence class participation not invalid, means is not acceptable. If we use character data type, it only accept the character field, it is not accept any special symbol or number. So that is the example of the in BVA and ECP. It is very important, while writing the test cases we use these techniques, and two other techniques to write the test cases, like I mention here. One is state transition table. State transition table. State transition table means suppose if we have a login page and a login page, and we for in the login page we have a username field and password field, and for this there is a limit of four times. If we put 4 times invalid username or password, so if you put 4 times invalid username or password, so your account is deactivated. Account is deactivated. So if you attend the maximum limit of the login field, so you after that your account is deactivated, or yeah, your account is deactivated. That is comes in the state transition tables. This is one technique for writing the test cases, and another one is the error guessing technique. So error guessing means mostly the so which tester have experience in like 4 to 5 year of experience, that tester you use the error guessing techniques according to their experience and write the test cases. And these are the 3 or 4 testing techniques we have to mention. Like, and the third one is error handling coverages. Error handling coverages means we check that system show error message or not in this error handling coverage. Suppose in error handling coverage include checking whether the system show error message or not. Suppose for example, and customer requirement is for mobile number field, and mobile number field accept 10 digit only, and according to that developer develop that field, but the user put only the 6 digit or 5 digit or 7 digit in that field, and after click on the submit button, so then system showed highlighted with the text box with red color, so like with error message please enter 10 digit numbers. So this message system display or not, we check in the error handling coverage. Error handling coverage, that is the meaning of error handling coverage, means we check only the system show error message or not. Or for example, if you are filling any exam form, and in that exam form there all this field are compulsory, but you are not mentioning for your address field, you are not filling properly, and if you click on submit button, the system show you this is mandatory field, and for the address field system show you error message, it is required. So that is nothing but the error handling coverage. And then after backend coverage is there. So in backend coverage we check whether the data is fetched from the database or not, or we also check if we put your username or passwords field password in the login field, login page or login module, so we check that username or that password will store in the database or not for the particular person. So we this is this all check in the backend coverage. And then after the service level coverage is there. Service level coverage means we check the functional flow of the applications in the service level coverage. Like in the functional flow diagram, BA create the sequence of functional and modules. Like for example, we take for the service level coverage Amazon. For Amazon we have a sign in page, then after sign in we go to the login page. After the login page we direct to the home page. In the home page we select that product, and we go to the cart. After the cart we have to mention the my orders, order. In the order we see all the information. That is the flow. This flow is according to the customer requirements, and this is nothing but the service level coverage. Functional flow diagram is service level coverage. And the last one is the calculation based coverage. In the calculation based coverage we check the arithmetic operation like addition, multiplication, division, subtractions. So that all check in the arithmetic calculation based coverage. Suppose for example Flipkart, and in the Flipkart you select one product, and the product amount is 1000 rupees, and that total amount comes in 1000 in your orders, and again we add two more product of 15 rupees is, then the total amount is 1100 rupees. Then that total amount is automatically calculated, so that is nothing but which that check in the calculation based coverage. Means if we are adding your product product to the cart, if you increase your product quantity, then automatically the amount will be calculated. So that is nothing but the calculation based coverage, that check in the calculation based coverage. So this is all about the functional testing only. So functional testing includes the behavioral coverage, input domain coverage, error handling coverage, backend coverage, and calculation based coverage. In the behavioral coverage, we check the behavior and property of the object of functionality, And in input domain coverage we check the size and input or size or data type of which data type we are using. We have to maintain the boundary value analysis and equivalence class participation in input domain coverage also. So we maintain here BVA and ECP. Then after the error handling coverage, in the error handling coverage we check the system show the error message or not, display error message or not. And then backend coverage is also there. In backend coverage we check that the whatever the data enter from the user input, so that data is stored in our database or not. If we fetch data from the database, that particular data is fetched from the database, we check in the backend coverage also. And the calculation based coverage, in the calculation based coverage we check arithmetic operations, adding division multiplications. So these five coverage in this functional testing we today we learn. This is important what is functional testing. And we have to give each and every for the every in behavioral coverage we have to give example while explaining in the front of the interviewer. So we have to give the at least one or two example for that all this um behavioral coverage. If you explaining the behavioral coverage, you have to give one example. You have to explain with the example of that what is the concept of behavioral coverage, input domain coverage. If you give example of this field or this functionality, so the interviewer will be impressed, like he understand the that person have a good understanding of this concept. So this is all about the functional testing. So in the next video we will learn about the non-functional testing, and after that we learn about the usability testing, security testing and performance testing. So these are we learn in the next videos. So for today's, this all about the today's like system and integration testing, then the functional testing and its coverages. So thank you guys.